The updated 2019 Canadian Food Guide was just one of the things that was changed as part of Canada's new food policy. And this is actually called Canada's Healthy Eating Strategy, and some of these changes started taking place back in 2013. So the food guide was one of the major changes, but there's also changes in the amount of sodium that is now allowed in certain prepackaged foods. There's also different sodium targets that Health Canada is working with the food industry to help achieve, to minimize the amount of sodium in the foods that we find in restaurants and within the hospitality industry. There's been an expansion of the vitamin D fortification program, so there's more products now that are fortified with vitamin D, something that is often inadequate in the Canadian diet. And also one of the best things about food policy is we are in the process of completely eliminating trans fat from the food supply, which is great to hear. Canada is one of the first countries to have trans fat on food labels, and they're also one of the first countries to really push to eliminate this from our food supply, which is great because trans fat is significantly associated with cardiovascular disease. And there's also changes to food labeling. So we're going to talk about some of those changes in here. And in particular, in a video below, there should be a video that talks a little bit about what we find on a Canadian food label. And this slide just tells you some of those basics that you would see there. These are the things that have to be on a Canadian food label, and a manufacturer has to include this, or they could get in trouble by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Another new change with our food labels is that our ingredients lists are a little bit clearer. In particular, one of the things I'm so happy to see is now they have to group sugar-based ingredients together. So it used to be that there's all these different types of sugars that might be found in foods, and you might find them scattered in an ingredients list. Because on an ingredients list, you have to list things in descending order by weight. Well, now sugar has typically moved up in an ingredients list because you have to group all the different types of sugars together, which I'm so happy to see. You'll notice that the nutrient facts box is also in the process of changing. One of the things I'm really happy to see is that calories are now calories. They're really in your face. And this is to communicate the fact that a lot of us are consuming way too many calories, and this is something that significantly increases risk of obesity and its related problems. Okay, serving sizes are now more typical, and they're easier to compare different products together. It used to be that yogurt could be sometimes in a serving with a serving size of 125 milliliters in one product, and in another product it would be 200 milliliters. So they're trying to make these similar so products are easier to compare. Okay, there's now a percent daily value for sugar. The percent daily value compares how much of a nutrient there is in that product, in a serving of that product, to the recommended amount. Okay, so a higher percent daily value tells you you're closer to recommendations, or sometimes closer to an upper limit. Okay, you'll notice that vitamin A and C are gone. They're no longer here. Okay, calcium and iron are still there, but now potassium is there because we don't get enough potassium in the Canadian diet, and we want to up that. Also, in addition to this material that needs to be on a nutrition label, food manufacturers can also have certain claims on their food products, but they have to meet guidelines in order to be able to have a particular nutrition claim. So I know it's a big list here, but these are some example of food composition claims. And food composition claims basically tell us what's in that food. So you might see the word pure, 100% pure. You might see the word true, real, or genuine. Or you might see a highlighted ingredient claim that talks about a particular food or ingredient in that food. These all have to meet guidelines in order for someone to put this on their food label. But these are things that manufacturers sometimes use to really, make a certain aspect of a product shine. But I just, as a caution, take into account the whole product. And also, it's almost always better to go for foods that don't have a package, like vegetables and fruits, or animal products as well that don't come in a package. Also, we might see nutrient content claims. So nutrient content claims highlight a specific nutrient. So you might see the words, for instance, high in fiber or low in sodium or high in protein. Okay. In order to be able to say that something is high in or low in, it has to meet a specific specification. So the example here is for something to say high in fiber, it has to have at least 4 grams in fiber. Okay. To say it's very high in fiber, it needs to have at least 6 grams of fiber in there. There is also 2 types of health claims that might be found on a nutrition label as well. These are disease reduction claims or function claims. The big difference here is that a disease reduction claim talks about a certain nutrient or aspect of the food and its ability to reduce risk of disease. Whereas a function claim doesn't talk about disease. A function claim talks about that particular nutrient and how it contributes to the basic function of the body. So here's a good distinction. So let's say something has calcium in it. A disease reduction claim that's permittable is something along the lines of diets high in calcium help reduce risk of osteoporosis. This food is high in calcium. Okay, so that's a disease reduction claim because it's talking about osteoporosis. A function claim for the same nutrient, for calcium, might be diets high in calcium help promote strong bones and teeth. This food is high in calcium. Okay, so it's not talking about reducing disease risk. It's talking about the basic function of that nutrient. And in this case, the basic function of calcium, one of its basic functions, is to promote the integrity of bones and teeth. So these 2 slides give you some specifics about acceptable, approved disease reduction claims and nutrient function claims that are permitted on Canadian food labels. And this gives you an example of the wording that's allowable. Where you can't, on a food label, make it sound like this food is a miracle cure. For instance, you can't say this food reduces risk of cardiovascular disease. What you can say is that that a healthy diet rich in a variety of vegetables and fruit may help reduce the risk of heart disease. This food is high in a variety of vegetables and fruit. Okay, so there's a distinction there, and food manufacturers have to be careful about how they word the claims that they're making. In addition, and we'll see how this changes by the time you watch this video, but Health Canada also wants to have these front of package labels. Okay, so to highlight that a food is high in saturated fat, sugar, and sodium, and to advise people to maybe eat less of that. Okay, so this was the proposal as of 2020 when I'm shooting this video, but this might change with time, but this is what was proposed at the time of this shooting. In addition, Health Canada has some recommendations about how to keep foods safe. So some recommendations for food safety is to make sure that you cook food thoroughly enough so you can kill off any bacteria or microorganism that could potentially cause damage. Okay. They recommend when defrosting to do so safely in the refrigerator or microwave or in cold water, but to not just leave things on the counter where they can defrost too much and they're more likely to promote the growth of bacteria. Okay. They also recommend refrigerating things, but only for so long. So fresh animal products, about 1 to 4 days. It really depends on the animal product. You can check the website for more specifics. I love this recommendation. Keep cold food cold and hot food hot. Right? So make sure you're keeping food at the temperature that they're supposed to be at to minimize, again, the proliferation of microorganisms that could make us feel ill. Okay? Wash countertops, make sure that with soapy water, soap helps to move things away, to like capture things and move them away, so they're less likely to build up on your countertops or other surfaces. And this one's a really important recommendation too about separating things out. So don't use the same knife to cut the chicken, raw chicken, that you're going to then use to cut out vegetables for your salad. Big no-no there. Okay? Animal products are way more likely to carry an infectious agent, and we want to make sure that we're keeping things separate where nothing can get cross-contaminated. And this is especially important if someone in your family, someone in your household has a food allergy. Right? We want to make sure that we're not contaminating a knife or a surface with, let's say, nuts, which are then going to be used to prepare another food that could bring some of those allergens over and potentially cause harm to that person. In addition to the recommendations about what should be found on food labels and how to handle food, etc., there is a different set of regulations and recommendations for things called natural health products. Natural health products are like probiotics or like vitamin supplements, basically anything you find at like a health food store. These are natural health products. They are not regulated by the same body that regulates food. They are regulated by the Natural and Non-Prescription Health Products Directorate. What a mouthful. And in order to sell these products, these products have to go through a review process for them to get approved. In the supplements video below, it's going to talk a little bit about what needs to be found on these natural health products in order for them to be sold here in Canada. Okay. In addition to these types of food policy, there is a little bit of food policy in and around menu labeling as well. Although there is now a push to have more menu labeling throughout the country. There is only one province here in Canada that has a mandatory menu labeling program, and that's Ontario. Ontario's Healthy Menu Choice Program. And this means that all food products sold at restaurants that have more than 20 locations, so think of like fast food chains, or think of like the Keg, or in Ontario, Kelsey's or something like that, these have to have calorie information on the menus. Okay, so they have to say, okay, this food item, this burger and fries has 1,500 calories in it. And that has to be on the menu when you look at it, okay? And as you'll read in the textbook, this program is more likely to influence food choices than this other program called the Informed Dining Program, which started in British Columbia. The Informed Dining Program is a voluntary program where calories or other food material doesn't have to be listed, but it has to be made available. So maybe there's like a website where it's available. So if you see this symbol here, that shows that it's part of the Informed Dining Program and that you could look up the nutritional information about those foods. But quite honestly, people don't tend to do that. And since it's a voluntary program, not everyone uses it. So we'll see in the coming years if there is a push to have more of like a federally mandated menu labeling program. I know like the Dietitians of Canada and Obesity Canada, they're all kind of advocates for this. But as of right now, there's only one mandatory program, and that's in Ontario. And the rest of us are going to have to look up nutritional breakdowns in order to find out what's in our foods.